Stop Chasing Money, Do This Instead, published by MindForge Audiobooks. Introduction. You've been told your whole life to chase money, work harder, earn more, push yourself further, and you believed it because it sounds logical. More money means a better life, right? But look at your reality. You're working, you're trying, you're pushing forward, and yet you still feel stuck, tired, drained, like you're running, but not arriving. This is the illusion, the idea that more money equals a better life, because money alone doesn't fix the problem. It only amplifies what's already there. If your thinking is unclear, more money creates more confusion. If your direction is missing, more money creates more pressure. And that's why so many people feel exhausted. They are chasing something without understanding it. You keep pushing harder. You give more time, more energy, more effort. But the result doesn't match. Because the harder you chase money, the further it seems. Not because money is difficult, but because your focus is wrong. You are chasing the outcome instead of building the source. And this is the hidden mistake most people make. They focus on earning. Instead of creating value, they focus on quick results. Instead of long-term structure, they react instead of thinking. And this keeps them in a loop. Work more, feel pressure, chase more, feel stuck again and again without real progress. Because money is not something you chase. It is something that follows. It follows value. It follows clarity. It follows structure. But if you ignore these, you keep chasing, and chasing never ends. This audiobook will shift that perspective. It will show you why chasing money is the problem and what you should focus on instead. Not more effort, not more hustle, but better direction, better thinking, better structure. Because the moment you stop chasing money and start building what actually creates it, is the moment everything begins to change, not just your income, but your entire life. Chapter 1. The Trap of Chasing Money. Most people believe money will solve everything. If they earn more, life will become easier. If they make enough, stress will disappear. If they reach a certain number, they will finally feel satisfied. So, they chase it, relentlessly. More hours, more effort, more pressure. And for a while, it feels like progress. You're moving, you're doing something, you're pushing forward. But beneath that movement, something else is happening. Pressure is building, because when you focus only on money, your entire life becomes tied to one outcome. Every decision becomes about earning. Every action becomes about income. Every moment becomes a calculation. And that creates tension, because now your sense of progress depends on numbers. If income increases, you feel good. If it slows down, you feel anxious. Your emotional state becomes linked to money. And that is dangerous, because money is unstable. It fluctuates, it changes, and when your mindset is tied to it, your stability disappears. This is why focusing only on money creates pressure. You are not just earning, you are depending. Another major problem is external goals. Chasing money is an external pursuit. It is something outside of you, a number, a result, a target. And while external goals can motivate you, they cannot sustain you because they are never enough. You reach one level, and immediately there is another. You hit a milestone, and your expectations increase. This creates a never-ending cycle. I need more. I'm not there yet. I have to keep going. And no matter how much you achieve, it never feels complete, because the goal keeps moving. This is the illusion. You think money will bring satisfaction, but it only shifts your expectations. And that leads to frustration, because you are always chasing, but never arriving. This is where internal growth becomes important. Instead of focusing only on what you earn, you need to focus on what you become, your skills, your thinking, your ability to create value. Because these are internal. They grow with you. They are stable, and they influence everything else. When you focus on internal growth, money becomes a result, not the goal. But when you ignore internal growth and chase only external outcomes, you create imbalance. You push harder, but you don't evolve. And that limits your progress. Another powerful trap is the cycle of not enough. No matter how much you earn, it doesn't feel sufficient because your mindset is built around lack. You compare, you measure, you evaluate, and there is always someone ahead, always something more. So your focus stays on what is missing, not what is present. This creates dissatisfaction because you are always looking forward, never appreciating where you are. And that keeps you in a constant state of chasing. You believe, when I reach that level, I'll feel better. But when you reach it, nothing changes because the mindset remains the same. Still chasing, still comparing, still feeling like it's not enough. This is not a money problem. It is a thinking problem. And until that thinking changes, the cycle continues. Another important consequence is burnout. Chasing money requires constant effort, constant movement, constant pressure. You push yourself harder. You sacrifice time. You sacrifice energy. You sacrifice balance because you believe the reward will be worth it. But over time, this creates exhaustion, mental fatigue, emotional drain, loss of clarity. You start feeling disconnected, not just from your work, but from yourself, because everything becomes about earning and nothing feels meaningful. This is burnout, not from working, but from chasing without direction, because effort without purpose creates fatigue, and chasing money without clarity creates emptiness. Another key issue is that chasing money removes intention. You stop asking, what do I actually want? What kind of life am I building? Instead, you focus on, how can I earn more? And that narrows your perspective, because now your decisions are reactive. You take opportunities based on income, not alignment. You move based on urgency, not strategy. And that creates inconsistency, because you are not building something intentional. You are responding to pressure. Another powerful shift is understanding this. Money is a result, not a goal. It reflects value. It reflects structure. It reflects decisions. But it is not the source. If you focus only on the result, you ignore the process. And without the process, the result is unstable. This is why chasing money doesn't work, because it focuses on the outcome, without building the foundation. And without a foundation, nothing lasts. So what is the alternative? Stop chasing. Start building. Build your skills. Build your thinking. Build systems that create value. Because when you focus on building, money follows naturally. It becomes a byproduct, not a target. And that removes pressure, because now your focus is on growth, not just outcome. In the end, the trap of chasing money is not obvious. It feels productive. It feels logical. But it creates stress. It creates imbalance. It creates a cycle that never ends, because you are always moving, but never arriving. So the shift is simple, but powerful. Stop chasing money. Start building what creates it, because the moment you change your focus is the moment your results begin to change. And that is where real progress begins. Chapter 2. Money follows value, not effort. Most people believe one simple rule: work harder, earn more money. It sounds logical. If you put in more hours, you should get better results. If you push yourself more, you should earn more. And to a certain point, that's true. Hard work can increase income, but only to a limit, because effort alone does not create wealth. It creates activity. And activity is not the same as value. This is where most people get stuck. They focus on how much they work instead of what they produce. They measure effort instead of impact. And that creates a ceiling, because your income is not directly tied to how hard you work. It is tied to how much value you create. This is a fundamental shift, because once you understand this, everything changes. You stop asking, how can I work more? And start asking, how can I become more valuable? Because value determines income, not effort alone. You can work long hours doing low-value tasks and earn little, or you can focus on high-value work and earn more with less time. This is the difference. Effort is linear. Value is scalable. Effort depends on time. Value depends on impact, and impact can grow. Another important truth is this: hard work without direction leads to exhaustion, not growth. You can push yourself every day, stay busy, stay active, but if your effort is not aligned with value, you will not see significant results. You will feel tired, frustrated, stuck, because you are giving energy, but not creating leverage. And without leverage, there is no multiplication. This is why some people work extremely hard, but remain in the same financial position, while others with less effort create more income, because they focus on value. So what is value? Value is what solves a problem, what improves something, what makes something easier, better, or more effective. When you create value, you provide something useful, something needed, and people are willing to pay for that. This is the foundation of income, not effort, but usefulness, not time, but impact. The more valuable you are, the more opportunities you create, because value attracts demand, and demand creates income. This is why wealthy individuals focus on developing value. They improve their skills, they expand their thinking, they learn how to solve bigger problems, because bigger problems create bigger rewards. And this leads to another important idea. Skills are the foundation of value. What you know, what you can do, what you can create. These define your ability to generate income. If your skills are limited, your value is limited. If your value is limited, your income is limited. This is why skill development is critical, not optional, because your financial growth depends on your ability to grow. Each new skill increases your potential. Each improvement expands your opportunities. And over time, this creates momentum. You become more capable, more confident, more valuable. Another key factor is problem solving. Money flows to solutions, not effort. If you can solve problems, you create value. If you can solve bigger problems, you create more value, and that increases your earning potential. This is why understanding problems is important. What do people need? What are they struggling with? What can be improved? When you focus on these questions, you shift your thinking from working to creating, from earning to solving, and that creates opportunity. Another powerful shift is moving from task-based thinking to impact-based thinking. Most people focus on tasks. What do I need to do today? But wealthy thinkers focus on impact. What result does this create? Because tasks keep you busy. Impact creates value, and value creates income. This is why two people can work the same number of hours, but produce completely different results. One focuses on tasks, the other focuses on outcomes, and outcomes matter more. Another important concept is increasing earning potential. Most people try to increase income by doing more work, more time. But this approach has limits. Instead, focus on increasing your value. Because when your value increases, your income potential expands. You can charge more. You can create more. You can access better opportunities. And this does not require more time. It requires better ability. This is a smarter approach because it removes the limitation of time and replaces it with growth. Another key idea is consistency in value creation. You don't create value once. You create it repeatedly through your work, through your thinking, through your actions. And over time, this builds reputation, trust, demand, because people recognize value, they seek it, and when you consistently provide it, you become known for it, and that creates stability, because your income is not based on effort alone, it is based on recognition of value. Another important shift is long-term thinking. Value compounds, just like money. The more you develop your skills, the more valuable you become. The more valuable you become, the more opportunities you attract, and over time, this creates exponential growth. But this requires patience, because value does not always produce immediate results. It builds gradually, and that is why many people stop too early. They don't see quick returns, so they give up. But those who stay consistent eventually see the results. Another powerful idea is this: you don't get paid for effort. You get paid for results. Effort matters, but only when it creates something useful, something valuable. And this is where clarity is important. You need to understand what creates value in your field, what matters, what is needed, because once you know that, you can focus your effort correctly, and that creates better results. In the end, money follows value, not effort alone. Effort is the input, value is the output, and output is what determines income. So if you want to earn more, don't just work harder. Become more valuable, improve your skills, solve bigger problems, create more impact. Because the moment you shift your focus from effort to value is the moment your financial growth begins. And that is how real wealth is built, not through constant hustle, but through meaningful contribution. And when you provide value consistently, money follows naturally. Chapter 3. You're focused on earning, not building. Most people spend their entire lives focused on one thing: earning, how to earn more, how to increase salary, how to get better pay. And while earning is necessary, it is not enough. Because earning creates income, but building creates wealth. This is the difference most people never fully understand. And because of that, they stay stuck, working harder, trying more, but never truly moving forward. The problem is not that they are earning. The problem is that they are only earning. They are not building anything beyond it. Active income is the most common form of earning. You work, you get paid. Your time is exchanged for money. And this system feels stable, predictable, clear. But it has a limitation. Your income depends on your effort. If you stop working, the income slows or stops. This means your growth is directly tied to your time, and time is limited. You cannot work endlessly. You cannot scale your hours infinitely. So even if you increase your income, there is always a ceiling. This is why active income alone does not create wealth. It creates survival. It helps you live, but it does not build something that grows beyond you. This is where asset thinking begins. Asset thinking is different. Instead of asking, how can I earn more money? You start asking, how can I build something that generates money? This is the shift. From effort to structure, from time to leverage. Assets are things that continue to produce value, even when you are not actively working. They are systems, structures, creations that keep generating results. And this changes everything, because now your income is not limited by your time. Your past efforts continue to work for you. They create ongoing outcomes, and over time, those outcomes grow. This is how wealth is built, not through constant effort, but through intelligent building. Another key difference is short-term income versus long-term wealth. Earning focuses on the present. You work today. You get paid today. It is immediate, visible, but temporary. Because once the work is done, the income stops. Building focuses on the future. You create something today that continues to produce later. It may not give immediate results, but over time, it grows, and that growth compounds. This is why building requires patience, because the results are not instant. They develop gradually, and that is why most people avoid it. They prefer immediate income, immediate reward, because it feels more certain. But certainty can limit growth, because it keeps you focused on the short term, and the short term does not create lasting wealth. Another important concept is this: earning pays you once, building pays you repeatedly. This is the core difference. When you earn, the effort is tied to the result. When you build, the effort creates ongoing value, and that value continues to produce. This creates leverage, because one action leads to multiple outcomes. Instead of starting from zero every day, you build on what you've already created, and that is how growth accelerates. Another reason building matters more than earning is control. When you rely only on earning, you are dependent on your job, on your time, on external factors. Your control is limited. But when you build, you create something of your own, something you can shape, something you can grow, and that increases your control, because your income is no longer tied to one source. It is supported by what you've built. This creates stability, not just financial, but mental, because you are not constantly worried about maintaining your income. You have structure, and structure creates confidence. Another important shift is moving from worker to creator. Most people operate as workers. They follow systems. They complete tasks. They exchange time for money. And there is nothing wrong with that. But it limits growth, because you are operating within someone else's structure. Your role is defined. Your output is controlled. Your potential is restricted. Creators think differently. They don't just work within systems. They build them. They create value. They design structures. They think long-term, because creation allows expansion. You are not limited to one path. You can explore, experiment, build something new, and that creates opportunity. This does not mean you have to stop working. It means you need to start thinking differently. Instead of only focusing on your job, think about what you can build alongside it. Something small, something simple, something that can grow over time, because building does not require immediate change. It requires a shift in focus from earning only to earning and building. Another important factor is consistency. Building requires time. It requires effort, but not all at once. Small steps, repeated over time, and those steps accumulate. At first, the results may be small, almost unnoticeable, but over time they grow, they compound, and eventually they become significant. This is the power of building. It rewards patience. It rewards consistency, not intensity. Another key idea is this: most people are busy earning, so they never start building. They say, "I don't have time. I'll do it later." But later never comes, because earning takes all their energy. And without intention, building never begins. This is why awareness is important. You need to recognize this pattern and break it, not by stopping what you are doing, but by adding something new, allocating time, even a small amount, to build something beyond your job. Because the goal is not immediate transformation, it is gradual shift from dependence to independence, from earning to building. Over time, this changes everything. You are no longer relying on one source. You are creating multiple. You are no longer limited by time. You are creating leverage, and that creates growth. In the end, the difference is simple, but powerful. Earning helps you survive. Building helps you grow. Earning gives you income. Building gives you freedom. Earning is temporary. Building is long-term. So if you want to change your financial life, you need to shift your focus. Stop thinking only about earning. Start thinking about building, creating, expanding. Because the moment you move from working for money to building something that works for you is the moment your financial life begins to transform. And that is where real wealth begins. Chapter 4. You're ignoring your biggest asset. Most people spend their lives trying to increase income. They look outside, better jobs, more opportunities, higher paying paths. They search for something external. That will finally change their financial situation. But they overlook one critical truth. Your income does not come from your job. It comes from you. You are the source, your thinking, your skills, your decisions. These are what generate results. The job is just a platform. The opportunity is just a channel. But the value you bring, that comes from you. And this is where most people go wrong. They try to improve their income without improving themselves. They focus on the outcome, but ignore the source. And when the source does not grow, the outcome remains limited. This is why you feel stuck. Not because opportunities are missing, but because your development has slowed. You are the biggest asset you have. Not your salary, not your position, not your current situation. You. Because everything you earn is created through your ability, and ability can grow, but only if you invest in it. This is where skill development becomes critical. Skills are what increase your value. They define what you can do, what you can create, what you can offer. If your skills stay the same, your opportunities stay the same. If your skills grow, your opportunities expand. This is a direct relationship because the world rewards value, and value comes from ability. But many people stop developing their skills. They reach a certain level and stay there. They rely on what they already know, what they already can do, because it feels comfortable, familiar. But comfort slows growth, because growth requires effort, learning something new, trying something unfamiliar, improving weaknesses, and that is uncomfortable. So most people avoid it. They stay in their comfort zone, and over time, their growth stops. Not suddenly, but gradually. And that creates limitation. Because while you stay the same, the world moves forward. New skills emerge. New standards develop. New expectations rise. And if you don't grow, you fall behind. Not because you are incapable, but because you stopped evolving. Another important idea is self-investment. Most people are willing to spend money on things that feel immediate: comfort, convenience, lifestyle. But when it comes to investing in themselves, they hesitate because the return is not instant. It is long-term, and long-term thinking requires patience. But self-investment is one of the highest return decisions you can make because it improves your ability, and your ability determines everything. Better thinking leads to better decisions. Better skills lead to better opportunities. and better opportunities lead to better income. This is a chain, and it starts with you. Another key factor is increasing earning capacity. Most people try to earn more by doing more hours, more effort. But this approach has limits because your time is limited, your energy is limited. So eventually, you reach a point where you cannot do more, and your income stops growing. But when you increase your earning capacity, you change the equation. You are no longer limited by time. You are expanding your potential because now each hour you work is more valuable. You can produce more. You can create more impact. You can access higher level opportunities, and that increases your income. Not through more effort, but through better ability. This is a smarter path because it focuses on growth, not just activity. Another powerful idea is this: you carry your value with you, no matter where you go. Your skills, your knowledge, your mindset. These are not tied to one job. They are part of you, and that gives you flexibility, because even if your situation changes, your ability remains, and that creates security. Real security is not a paycheck. It is your ability to create income, again and again, in different ways, in different situations. And that comes from self-investment. Another important shift is understanding that growth starts within, not outside. You don't wait for opportunities. You prepare for them. You don't wait for change. You create it by improving yourself, by expanding your thinking, by developing your skills. Because when you grow internally, your external results follow. This is how transformation happens, not by changing your environment first, but by changing yourself. Another key step is taking responsibility. You are responsible for your growth, not your job, not your environment, not external conditions. You. And this is empowering because it means you have control. You can improve, you can learn, you can change at any point, but it requires intention. You need to decide, I will invest in myself. I will grow. And then act on it consistently. Another important factor is consistency. Self-investment is not a one-time action. It is a continuous process, small improvements, repeated over time, learning something new, practicing regularly, applying what you learn. And over time, these small actions create big results because growth compounds, just like money. Another powerful insight is this: you don't need to be perfect to grow. You need to be consistent. You don't need to know everything. You need to start. Take small steps, improve gradually, and over time your ability increases, your confidence builds, your results improve. In the end, ignoring your biggest asset is ignoring your potential. It keeps you limited. It keeps you dependent. It keeps your growth restricted. But when you invest in yourself, everything changes. Your thinking expands. Your skills improve. Your opportunities grow. And your income follows. Because you are the source. And the stronger the source, the greater the results. So stop looking outside for solutions. Start building within. Because the moment you invest in yourself is the moment your financial life begins to transform. And that is the most powerful shift you can make. Chapter 5. You're thinking short-term. Most people don't fail financially because they lack effort. They fail because they think short-term. They want results now, progress now, rewards now. And this feels natural because your brain is wired for immediacy. It wants quick feedback, quick success, quick satisfaction. But wealth does not work that way. Wealth is slow. It builds over time, through repetition, through patience. And this creates a conflict. What you want immediately versus what actually creates long-term success. This is the gap that keeps people stuck. Immediate results feel good. You do something, you get something, you work, you get paid, you spend, you feel satisfied. It's simple, clear, rewarding, but short-term thinking focuses only on this loop. Action, instant result, and that limits your vision because you are only thinking about today, not tomorrow, not next year, not the long-term outcome. And when your thinking is limited to the present, your decisions become reactive. You choose what feels good now instead of what creates value later. This is where problems begin, because most of the decisions that build wealth do not feel rewarding immediately. Saving money does not feel exciting. Investing does not feel dramatic. Learning new skills does not feel instantly profitable. In fact, these actions often feel slow, uncertain, delayed, and because of that, most people avoid them. They choose immediate comfort instead. This is the instant gratification mindset. You choose short-term pleasure over long-term gain. You prioritize feeling good now over building something meaningful later, and this creates a pattern. Spend now, delay effort, avoid discomfort, and over time, this pattern shapes your financial life. You don't build, you consume. You don't invest, you react. You don't grow, you repeat. This is why delayed gratification is powerful. Delayed gratification means choosing future benefit over present comfort. It means saying, I will wait, I will invest, I will build, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when there is no immediate reward, because you understand something important. What you build today creates your tomorrow, and this shift changes everything. You stop asking, what do I want right now? And start asking, what will this create later? This question brings clarity, because now every decision has a direction, every action has purpose, and purpose creates discipline. Another important concept is compounding. Compounding is the process where small actions grow over time. A small investment today becomes larger in the future. A small improvement today becomes significant over time. But compounding requires time, and this is where most people fail. They start, but they don't wait. They expect quick results. And when they don't see them, they stop. They think it's not working. But it is working, just not immediately, because compounding is invisible at first. It grows slowly, quietly, without noticeable change. And then, over time, it accelerates, but only if you stay consistent. This is why patience is critical, because patience allows compounding to work. Without patience, you interrupt the process. You stop too early, you change direction too often, and that prevents growth. This is one of the biggest mistakes, not lack of effort, but lack of patience. People want fast results, fast success, fast change, but real growth is not fast. It is gradual. It builds layer by layer, and those layers create strength. Another important shift is long-term thinking. Long-term thinking means making decisions based on future impact, not just present comfort. You ask, how will this affect me in a year? In 5 years? And that changes your behavior. You start saving more, investing more, learning more, because you are focused on the outcome, not just the moment. Another powerful idea is this. Short-term thinking feels easy, but creates long-term difficulty. Long-term thinking feels difficult, but creates long-term ease. This is the trade-off. You either choose comfort now and struggle later, or choose discipline now and benefit later. And your choice determines your direction. Another key factor is emotional control. Short-term decisions are often emotional. You feel something, and you react. You feel stress. You spend. You feel boredom. You distract yourself. You feel pressure. you avoid. These reactions are immediate, but they are not intentional, and they don't create growth. Long-term thinking requires control. You pause, you think, you choose, and that creates better decisions. Another important step is building patience gradually. You don't need to change everything at once. Start small. Delay one decision. Wait before spending. Invest a small amount. Learn something new. These small actions build discipline, and discipline builds patience, and patience creates growth. Another key idea is this: time is your greatest advantage, but only if you use it correctly. Small actions repeated over time create massive results, but only if you stay consistent. And consistency requires patience, because you are working without immediate reward. You are building without instant feedback, and that is difficult, but it is also powerful, because most people don't do it. Most people quit early. They choose comfort. They choose immediacy, and that creates average results. But those who stay, who continue, who trust the process, they see the difference, because over time, the gap grows between short-term thinking and long-term thinking, and that gap becomes visible in income, in opportunities, in results. In the end, thinking short-term is not a small problem. It shapes your entire financial life, because it influences every decision, every action, every habit. So if you want to build wealth, you need to change your time perspective. Stop focusing only on now. Start thinking about later, because the future is built in the present through what you choose today. Choose discipline. Choose patience. Choose growth, because the moment you shift from short-term thinking to long-term thinking is the moment your life begins to change. And that is how real wealth is created: slowly, consistently, powerfully, over time. Chapter 6. You're reacting, not strategizing. Most people think they are making decisions, but in reality, they are reacting. Reacting to situations, reacting to emotions, reacting to pressure. And this reaction feels normal, because it happens quickly, automatically, without much thought. Something happens, and you respond. You feel something, and you act. But this is not strategy. This is impulse. An impulse does not create consistent results. It creates patterns, uncontrolled patterns. This is the difference between reacting and strategizing. Reacting is immediate. Strategizing is intentional. Reacting is emotional. Strategizing is thoughtful. Reacting follows the moment. Strategizing creates direction. And most people live in reaction mode, especially when it comes to money. You earn and then decide what to do with it in the moment. You see something and you buy it without thinking. You feel pressure and you make quick financial decisions. You experience uncertainty and you avoid important actions. All of these are reactions, not decisions, because real decisions require awareness, and awareness requires pause. Another major factor is emotional decision-making. Money is not just logical, it is emotional. Every financial decision carries a feeling: fear, excitement, stress, relief. And these emotions influence your behavior more than you realize. You spend when you feel good. You spend when you feel bad. You avoid when you feel uncertain. You rush when you feel pressure. These emotional triggers create patterns because you are not thinking, you are responding, and responses are inconsistent. They change based on how you feel, and that creates instability because your financial behavior is not grounded, it is reactive. Another problem is lack of direction and planning. Most people do not have a clear financial strategy. They don't know exactly where they are going, what they are building, what their long-term goal is. So decisions are made randomly, based on the moment, based on current needs, based on emotions, and without direction. Every decision feels disconnected. There is no structure, no system, no consistency, just movement. And movement without direction does not create progress. It creates repetition. You move, but you don't advance, because you are not building toward anything specific. Another important issue is moving without clarity. Clarity means understanding where you are, where you want to go, how to get there. Without clarity, you are guessing. You make decisions without full understanding. You act without knowing the impact, and that creates mistakes. Not because you lack ability, but because you lack awareness. Clarity simplifies decisions. It removes confusion. It aligns your actions. But without it, everything feels uncertain, and uncertainty leads to hesitation or impulsive action, both of which are harmful. Another key concept is this: reaction is short-term, strategy is long-term. When you react, you focus on the moment, solving immediate problems, handling current situations, but strategy looks beyond the moment. It considers future impact. It connects decisions. It creates structure. This is what most people are missing. They are solving problems, but not building systems. They are handling situations, but not creating direction, and that keeps them stuck. Because every day becomes a new problem, a new reaction, instead of a step forward. Another powerful shift is thinking intentionally about money. Intentional thinking means you decide before you act. You plan before you move. You understand before you choose. Instead of reacting to every situation, you create guidelines. You define your priorities. You set direction, and this creates control. Because now your decisions are not random. They are aligned with your goals, with your strategy, with your future. Another important step is creating a pause between stimulus and response. Something happens, and instead of reacting immediately, you stop, you think, you evaluate. This pause is powerful because it breaks the pattern. It shifts you from automatic behavior to intentional action. Ask yourself, why am I making this decision? Is this aligned with my goals? What will this create long term? These questions create awareness, and awareness improves decisions. Another key idea is building a simple financial strategy. You don't need complexity. You need clarity. Know your priorities. Know your direction. Know your structure. How much you save, how much you invest, how much you spend. This creates consistency, because now your decisions follow a system, not emotion. Another important factor is discipline. Strategy requires discipline because you will feel emotions, you will feel impulses, but discipline keeps you aligned. It helps you follow your plan, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is not exciting. And over time, this creates stability because your actions are consistent, not reactive. Another powerful insight is this: clarity reduces stress. When you know what you are doing, you feel in control. When you understand your direction, you feel confident. But when you are reacting, everything feels uncertain, unstable. And that creates anxiety because you are not guiding your financial life. You are responding to it. Another key step is awareness of triggers. What causes you to react? Stress, pressure, comparison. Identify these triggers, because once you know them, you can manage them, you can prepare for them, and that reduces impulsive decisions. Another important idea is long-term consistency. Strategy is not about one decision. It is about repeated decisions, aligned with your goals, day after day, month after month. And over time, this creates progress because your actions are connected. They build on each other, and that creates momentum. In the end, reacting keeps you busy, but not productive. It creates movement, but not progress. Strategizing creates direction. It creates structure. It creates results. So if you want to change your financial life, you need to shift from reaction to intention, from impulse to planning, from emotion to clarity. Because the moment you start thinking strategically about money is the moment you gain control. And control is what creates growth. And growth is what builds wealth. So stop reacting, start thinking, start planning, start building, because your future is not shaped by reactions. It is shaped by decisions. And better decisions create a better life. Chapter 7. You're trying to do everything alone. Most people believe that success comes from doing more effort, more control, more responsibility. They try to handle everything themselves, every task, every decision, every detail, because it feels responsible, it feels productive, it feels like progress. But there is a hidden problem. Doing everything alone limits your growth, not because you are not capable, but because your capacity is limited. You have limited time, limited energy, limited focus. And no matter how hard you work, you cannot expand beyond those limits. This is where most people get stuck. They rely only on effort. And effort has a ceiling. You can only do so much in a day. You can only focus on so many things. And once you reach that limit, your growth stops. This is why effort alone is not enough, because effort is linear. You work more. You get slightly more. You work less. You get less. It is directly tied to your input. And that creates limitation. But wealth is not built through linear growth. It is built through multiplication. And multiplication requires leverage. Leverage is the ability to do more. Without doing everything yourself, it is using systems, tools, people, and structures to expand your output. Instead of relying only on your effort, you create ways to multiply it. This is the shift. From doing everything to building something that works beyond you. Most people don't think this way. They believe, if I want it done right, I have to do it myself. And while that may feel true, it creates a bottleneck because everything depends on you. Nothing moves without your involvement, and that slows everything down. Wealthy individuals think differently. They ask, how can this be done without me? How can I create a system? How can I scale this? This is leverage thinking. It removes the limitation of time and replaces it with structure. One of the most powerful forms of leverage is systems. A system is something that works consistently, without constant effort. It is a process, a method, a structure that produces results. Instead of repeating the same task every day, you create a system that handles it. And once the system is in place, it continues. This creates efficiency, because now your effort is not wasted on repetition. It is used for creation, for improvement, for growth. Another important form of leverage is delegation. Delegation means allowing others to handle certain tasks, not because you cannot do them, but because your time is better used elsewhere. Most people avoid delegation. They feel they need control. They feel responsible for everything. But this creates overload. You spend time on tasks that do not create high value, and that limits your growth because your time is being used inefficiently. Wealthy individuals understand this. They focus on high-impact activities, strategy, decision-making, creation, and they delegate the rest. This allows them to focus on what matters most, and that creates better results. Another key concept is scalability. Scalability means your results can grow. Without a proportional increase in effort, You create something once and it produces results multiple times. This is different from linear work because now your output is not tied to your time. It is tied to your structure. This is how growth accelerates because you are not starting from zero every day. You are building on what already exists. And over time, this creates exponential results. Another important idea is this. Trying to do everything alone is often driven by control. You want things done a certain way. You want certainty. You want to avoid mistakes. But control can become limitation because it keeps everything dependent on you, and dependency slows growth. Letting go of control is not easy, but it is necessary because growth requires expansion, and expansion requires others, systems, structure. Another powerful shift is moving from effort thinking to structure thinking. Instead of asking, "How can I do more?" you ask, "How can this be done better? How can this be simplified? How can this be repeated without me?" These questions create leverage. They move you from working to building, from doing to designing, and that creates freedom. Another important factor is focusing on high-value activities. Not all tasks are equal. Some create more impact than others. Some move you forward. Some just keep you busy. You need to identify the difference and focus on what creates the most value, because your time is limited, and how you use it determines your results. This is where prioritization becomes important. You don't need to do everything. You need to do the right things and let go of the rest. Another key idea is building gradually. You don't need to create complex systems immediately. You can start small, simplify one process, delegate one task, create one structure, and over time, expand. Because leverage is built step by step, and each step increases your capacity. Another powerful insight is this. You don't grow by doing more. You grow by doing things differently, by using your time more effectively, by creating systems, by building structure. Because growth is not about effort alone. It is about intelligent effort. In the end, trying to do everything alone is not strength. It is limitation. It keeps you busy, but not progressing. It keeps you working, but not building. So the shift is clear. Stop trying to handle everything. Start creating leverage. Build systems. Delegate tasks. Focus on high-value work. Because the moment you move from doing everything alone to building something that works beyond you is the moment your growth begins to expand. And that is how real wealth is created, not through constant effort, but through intelligent structure. And when your structure grows, your results multiply, and that is the power of leverage. Chapter 8. You're chasing income instead of freedom. Most people believe they want money, but what they actually want is freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to live on their terms, freedom to control their time. But somewhere along the way, that goal gets lost and replaced with something else. Income, more income, higher income, constant income. And without realizing it, you begin chasing money instead of chasing freedom. This is where the problem begins, because income and freedom are not the same. You can earn a lot and still feel trapped. You can have a high-paying job and still have no control over your time. You can make more money and still feel stressed, busy, and overwhelmed. This is the illusion that more money automatically creates freedom. But it doesn't, because money alone does not change your structure. If your life is built around constant work, more money only increases pressure. If your time is controlled by your job, more income does not give you control. It just increases dependency. This is why many people feel stuck, even when they are earning more than before, because they are chasing income, not designing freedom. Another important distinction is this: income is about earning. Freedom is about control. Income answers the question, how much do I make? Freedom answers the question, how much control do I have over my life? And these are very different, because you can earn more, but still have no control over your schedule, no flexibility, no space. This is the trade-off most people accept without realizing it. They exchange time for money. And as long as income increases, they believe they are progressing, but they are not gaining freedom. They are increasing dependency, because now they need that income to maintain their lifestyle, and that creates pressure. You cannot stop. You cannot slow down. You cannot step away, because everything depends on your continuous effort. This is not freedom. It is a higher-paying version of the same system. Another key issue is that people design their lives around earning, not living. They choose paths based on income potential, not alignment. They prioritize work over everything else, time, energy, well-being, because the goal is more money. But this creates imbalance, because your life becomes centered around earning, and everything else becomes secondary. This leads to burnout, disconnection, lack of fulfillment, because earning alone does not create a meaningful life, it only supports it. This is why designing your life is important. Instead of asking, how can I earn more? Ask, what kind of life do I want to live? How much time do you want? How much flexibility? What kind of daily experience? These questions create clarity, because now money becomes a tool, not the goal. You start designing your life first, and then align your income with it, not the other way around. Another powerful idea is this: freedom is built through structure, not income alone. You need systems that support your life, income that is not tied completely to your time, flexibility in how you work, control over your schedule. These create freedom. But if all your income depends on your constant effort, you remain limited, no matter how much you earn. This is why aligning money with purpose is critical. Purpose gives direction. It defines what matters. It helps you decide what to pursue and what to avoid. Without purpose, you chase everything, every opportunity, every increase, every possibility, and that creates chaos, because you are not guided, you are reacting. But when you have purpose, you become selective. You choose what aligns. You focus on what matters, and that creates clarity. Another important shift is moving from earning-focused thinking to freedom-focused thinking. Instead of asking, how can I make more money? You ask, how can I create more freedom? And this changes your decisions. You start valuing time more. You start thinking about flexibility. You start building systems. Because now the goal is not just income, it is control. Another key concept is sustainability. Earning more is not enough. It has to be sustainable. You should be able to maintain your life without constant pressure, without constant exhaustion, without sacrificing everything else. And this requires balance between income and freedom, between effort and structure, between work and life. Another powerful insight is this: freedom is not something you reach later. It is something you build now, through your decisions, through your priorities, through your structure. If you constantly delay freedom, saying, I'll enjoy later, I'll slow down later, that later often never comes, because your habits become your life. And if your habits are focused only on earning, your life will always feel like work. Another important factor is redefining success. Success is not just income, it is control, it is flexibility, it is peace of mind. Because what is the value of money? If you don't have time to enjoy it, what is the value of success? If you feel constantly pressured, this is where many people realize, too late, that they were chasing the wrong thing. They built income, but not freedom. Another key step is awareness. You need to recognize your current pattern. Are you chasing money or building a life? Are your decisions aligned with freedom or just income? These questions create clarity, and clarity leads to change. Another important shift is taking small steps. You don't need to completely change everything immediately. You can start by adjusting your thinking, your priorities, your decisions. Value your time more. Be intentional with your choices. Think about long-term freedom, not just short-term income, because small changes create direction, and direction creates results. In the end, chasing income without thinking about freedom creates limitation. You may earn more, but you don't live more. So the shift is simple, but powerful. Stop chasing money alone. Start building a life. Design your structure. Align your income with your purpose. Create systems that support your freedom. Because the moment you shift from earning to living is the moment your life begins to change. And that is where real success exists. Not in how much you make, but in how you live. And that is the difference between income and freedom. Chapter 9. The right focus. Build, don't chase. Most people spend years chasing money, chasing opportunities, chasing success. They move from one thing to another, trying, pushing, hoping something works. But chasing creates instability because you are always reacting, always searching, always starting again, and that keeps you in motion, but not in progress. This is why the real shift is simple. Stop chasing, start building, because building creates direction, structure, consistency, and that is what leads to long-term growth. When you chase, you depend on what is available. When you build, you create what is needed. This is the difference. Chasing is external. Building is internal. Chasing follows opportunities. Building creates them. This is where systems become powerful. A system is something that works consistently. It produces results without requiring constant effort. Instead of repeating the same actions every day, you create a process, a structure, something that continues. And once that system is in place, it generates outcomes again and again. This is how income becomes stable, because it is not tied to daily effort. It is supported by structure. Most people don't build systems. They rely on activity. They work, earn, and repeat. But this creates dependency, because everything depends on them, and that limits growth. But when you build systems, you reduce dependency. You create continuity, and that creates freedom. Another important idea is focusing on value creation, not just earning. Value is what attracts income, not effort alone. When you create something useful, something meaningful, something that solves a problem, you generate value, and value creates demand, and demand creates income. This is why building is more powerful than chasing, because instead of looking for money, you create something that attracts it. You become a source, not a seeker, and that changes everything. Because now opportunities come to you, not because you chase them, but because you create value. Another key concept is long-term financial structure. Most people operate without structure. They earn, they spend, they react. But there is no system, no plan, no foundation, and without structure, there is no stability. You move, but without direction, and that creates inconsistency. But when you build structure, everything changes. You define how money flows, how it is used, how it is grown. You create systems for saving, for investing, for building, and this creates clarity. Because now, your financial life is not random, it is designed, and design creates control. Another powerful shift is moving from chasing to attracting. When you chase, you are always behind. You are trying to catch something, trying to reach something, trying to get something. And this creates pressure because you feel like you are always missing something. But when you build, you attract. Because value draws attention. It creates interest. It creates demand. And this changes your position. You are no longer chasing. You are being sought because you have something valuable. This is the power of creation. It shifts you from consumer to contributor, from seeker to source, and that creates leverage. Another important idea is consistency in building. You don't build once, you build continuously, small steps, repeated over time, improving your systems, refining your value, strengthening your structure, and over time, this creates growth because each step adds to the previous one. Nothing is wasted. Everything accumulates. And this is how momentum is created. Another key factor is patience. Building takes time. It does not produce instant results. And that is why many people stop. They expect quick outcomes. And when they don't see them, they return to chasing. Because chasing feels faster, more immediate. But it is temporary. Building is slower, but it is lasting. And that is the difference. Temporary versus sustainable. Another powerful insight is this. You don't need to do everything. You need to do the right things. Focus on what creates value, what builds structure, what generates long-term results, and ignore what does not, because your time is limited, and how you use it determines your growth. Another important step is clarity. You need to know what you are building, what your goal is, what direction you are moving in, because without clarity, you drift, you react, you chase again. But with clarity, you stay focused, you stay consistent, and that creates progress. Another key idea is this. Building reduces stress because you are not constantly searching. You are creating, you are developing, you are improving, and that creates confidence because you are in control, not reacting to circumstances, but shaping them. In the end, the right focus is not chasing, it is building. Because chasing keeps you dependent. Building makes you independent. Chasing creates pressure. Building creates stability. Chasing is temporary. Building is long-term. So if you want to change your financial life, change your focus. Stop looking for opportunities. Start creating them. Stop chasing money. Start building value. Stop reacting. Start designing. Because the moment you shift from chasing to building is the moment your life begins to transform. And that is where real growth happens, not through constant pursuit, but through intentional creation. And when you build consistently, you don't need to chase, because what you create will bring everything you need. Chapter 10. The shift that changes everything. Everything you've been doing up to this point has been shaped by one thing: your focus. What you focus on determines how you think. How you think determines how you act. And how you act determines your results. So if your results are not where you want them to be, the real change does not start outside. It starts with a shift in focus. Because when your focus changes, everything else follows. This is not about working harder. It is not about doing more. It is about thinking differently, and that difference changes your direction. The first shift is from money-focused to value-focused. Most people focus on money, how much they earn, how fast they can earn it, how to increase it. And this creates pressure, because money becomes the goal, the measurement, the standard. But money is not the source, it is the result. When you focus only on money, you ignore what creates it, you chase outcomes, without building the foundation. This is why progress feels unstable, because the focus is misplaced. When you shift to value, everything changes. You begin to ask different questions. How can I create something useful? How can I solve a problem? How can I improve something? This changes your direction. You are no longer chasing income. You are creating impact, and impact creates value, and value attracts money. This removes pressure, because now your focus is within your control. You can improve your skills. You can increase your ability. You can create more value, and that creates growth. This is the foundation. Not money, but value. The second shift is from short-term to long-term thinking. Most people think in the present. What can I get now? What can I achieve quickly? And this creates impulsive decisions. You choose what feels good now, instead of what builds something later. This leads to inconsistency, because short-term thinking is reactive. It responds to the moment. But long-term thinking creates direction. It asks, what will this create over time? How will this affect my future? And that changes behavior. You become more patient, more disciplined, more intentional, because now your decisions are connected. They are not isolated moments. They are part of a larger structure. This creates consistency, and consistency creates growth, because you are building, not reacting. The third shift is from reaction to intention. Most people live in reaction mode. They respond to situations. They act based on emotion. They make decisions quickly, without thinking deeply. And this creates instability, because reactions change. They depend on feelings, on circumstances, on external factors. But intention is different. Intention is deliberate. It is conscious. It is aligned. When you act with intention, you choose your direction. You define your actions. You control your behavior. And that creates stability, because your decisions are not random. They are guided by your goals, by your values, by your vision. This is where control comes from, not from external conditions, but from internal clarity. Another important part of this shift is awareness. You need to be aware of your patterns, your habits, your thinking, because without awareness, you repeat the same behaviors, and repetition creates the same results. But awareness breaks that cycle. It allows you to see what you are doing and change it. This is where transformation begins. Another key element is discipline. Shifting your mindset is not a one-time decision. It is a continuous process. You need to practice it every day, through your actions, through your choices, because consistency builds identity, and identity shapes behavior. Over time, this becomes natural, not forced, not difficult, just part of who you are. Another powerful idea is building a sustainable wealth mindset. Sustainability means something that lasts, something that continues, something that does not collapse under pressure. Most people build unsustainable patterns. They push hard. They chase fast results. They rely on effort alone, and eventually they burn out, because it is not sustainable. A sustainable mindset is different. It is balanced. It is structured. It is long-term. It focuses on growth, not just outcomes. It values consistency, not intensity. It builds systems, not just effort. This creates stability, Because you are not constantly pushing, you are building, and building creates momentum. Another important factor is alignment. Your actions need to align with your goals. Your goals need to align with your values, and your values need to align with your vision. When everything is aligned, your decisions become clear. You don't hesitate. You don't second guess. You move forward with confidence because you know your direction. This reduces stress because you are not confused. You are focused. Another key idea is this: you don't need more information. You need better thinking. Most people already know what to do. Save more, invest more, improve skills. But they don't act because their mindset is not aligned. And without alignment, knowledge does not translate into action. This is why mindset matters, because it connects knowledge to behavior. Another powerful shift is taking ownership. You are responsible for your results, not your circumstances, not your environment, you. This is not about blame. It is about control. Because when you take ownership, you gain power, you can change, you can improve, you can grow. But if you blame external factors, you stay stuck because you feel powerless. Ownership changes that. It puts you in control. Another important step is building habits. Your mindset is reflected in your habits. What you do daily defines your direction. So if you want to change your life, change your habits. Small actions, repeated consistently, because habits create patterns, and patterns create outcomes. Another key idea is patience. This shift does not create instant results. It builds over time, and that requires trust. Trust in the process, trust in your actions, trust in your direction, because growth is not immediate, but it is inevitable if you stay consistent. In the end, this shift changes everything, not because it is dramatic, but because it is foundational. It changes how you think, how you act, how you decide, and that changes your results. So remember, from money-focused to value-focused, from short-term to long-term, from reaction to intention, and from scattered effort to sustainable growth, because the moment you make this shift is the moment your life begins to transform, not suddenly, but steadily, not temporarily, but permanently. And that is what creates real wealth, not just financial, but personal. Because true success is not just what you earn, it is who you become. And that is the shift that changes everything. Conclusion: money is not the goal, it never was. It is a result, a reflection of what you create, how you think, and the value you bring into the world. But most people spend their lives chasing the result, without understanding the source. And that is why they feel stuck, because your focus determines your outcome. If you focus only on money, you create pressure. If you focus on value, you create growth. If you chase, you remain dependent. If you build, you become independent. This is the shift, not in effort, but in direction. Because working harder in the wrong direction will not change your life. But even small effort in the right direction can transform everything. You don't need to do more. You need to think differently, act intentionally, build consistently. Because when you focus on creating value, money becomes a natural outcome, not something you chase, but something that follows. This is how real wealth is built, quietly, consistently, over time. So stop chasing. Stop running after something that will always stay ahead. Instead, start building something that grows with you, your skills, your systems, your mindset. Because when you build the right foundation, everything else aligns, and in the end, success is not about how much you earn. It is about how you think, how you act, and what you create. So shift your focus. build value, and let money follow. CTA, call to action. Are you chasing money or building value? Be honest and share your answer in the comments. Your insight might help someone else break out of the same cycle. If you know someone feeling stuck financially, send this to them. Subscribe to MindForge Audiobooks for more powerful mindset audiobooks. Next video, the truth about financial freedom no one tells you. Stop chasing money, and you'll finally start attracting it.